It is my absolute honor to welcome into this space my sister, my friend, my spiritual guide. Yes, you are one of my spiritual guides. Iya Reverend DeShannon Barnes-Bowens, author of Hush Hush, and incredible, and look that one up online, and just incredible work that she has done over the years with One Spirit Interfaith Seminary, and as a Ifa priest, some call her priestess, I call her priest, has done amazing work in serving people through that ancestral tradition for over 20 years. And as an interfaith minister has just added to that whole lexicon of ways that she's able to provide support and care to people. And so, my dear one, thank you for being here with us today. Blessings to you as you lead us now.
Thank you, Carrie. I like to call Carrie my big sister, the good Reverend Doctor. And it's really wonderful to be with you all here. Thank you for coming, and greetings to wherever you are in the world. For anyone who is listening to this at any other future time, we bid blessings. And when I'm saying we, I'm speaking of the collective we, calling in the spirit of ancestors, the spirit of the land, the consciousness of all sentient beings and species. So I have been sitting with this theme of emotional wellness. Really, one, I'm a psychotherapist, so that's one of the areas that I just happen to dabble in. But also, in my tradition, we have something that comes up once a year. And I want to tell you a little bit about it. My tradition is called Ifa, IFA, that's the shorthand. It originates from Southwest Nigeria. And this tradition is thousands of years old. And it just so happens that just as we celebrate here our New Year starting on January 1st, their New Year starts in June, the first Saturday or the first Sunday, because they follow a lunar year cycle. And what happens at the beginning of this new year is that these priests get together and they do a divination. And they basically do a divination for the world. It's for practitioners who follow this path all over the world, and it's to give guidance on how we can show up in interacting with each other. It may have some clues on things that are to come globally, and most importantly, just to teach us to be better so that the planet continues to grow and thrive, and that we can grow and thrive in harmony with the planet. And it just so happened that this particular year, when they gathered in early June, that the marking or the message that came was a message that came with, I would like to say, a challenge that they wanted us to be mindful of, and that was the challenge of sickness. And so when I was thinking of sickness, I said, okay, well, what's the opposite of sickness? It would be wellness. And a lot of people, they think about things like physical well-being. But for me, I was also looking at, okay, well, there's a lot of different things that can speak to sickness. We can look at our physical health, of course, but we can also look at spiritual wellness, emotional wellness, and mental wellness. And given where we are, particularly in the United States, not just the political climate, but all of the different things that are happening in the world, at least those that I've been tuning into and connecting with in my various circles, it seems that really taking good care of our emotional self and our emotional well-being is of paramount importance at this time. And so I wanted to just offer a few words from this message that came up and some of the things that they said, because regardless of what tradition that you follow, at least me from my interfaith perspective, when wisdom comes, wisdom comes. I gather it all up as nourishment for myself. And so I wanted to offer this and then go into an opening prayer and open it up to all of us to just collectively think about and affirm, what do we need in order to cultivate and sustain emotional wellness for ourselves. When we look at the communities that we belong to and our families, what do we wish for our families and communities as it pertains to emotional wellness and well-being? And then what do we hope for the world? What would we affirm to have in place? Maybe that would be the medicine for the things that we see are lacking. So that's what I want to just offer before I share a few snippets here. And so I'm pulling up some notes. I'm a note taker, just so you all know. All right, so one of the things that came up with this message is from our oral scriptures, because this is an oral indigenous African tradition, is that they gave the guidance that we need to do things that boost our immune system. And so one of the things that they talked about was eating more African star apple. And so I said, okay, I found out from one of my friends that African star apple is a fruit that's quite expensive. And so the message that we translate that to is to eat more good fruit, eat organic, healthy, to the best of our ability, but boost our immune system. But beyond the physical immune system, what can we do to boost our emotional immune system so that we can maintain that? What do we need to do to cultivate more peace? What do we need that can help us to lessen anxiety? If you look at how you move on a weekly basis, what would you describe as your emotional state if you had to give 3 words to it? Would it be hurried? Would it be measured and steady? Would it be anxious? Would it be, moving in a rhythmic flow? What words would you use to describe your own emotional state, like on a weekly basis? And is there any place that you could make a pause to boost your own emotional immunity system so that you can stay well? So that's the first thing that I would offer. The second is that this oral scripture that came up, the name of it is called Otura Ogbe. That's Yoruba. You don't have to remember it, but it's Otura Ogbe, Otura-OGBE. And one of the philosophical meanings of this particular oral scripture is that this is a time to really tune into expressing ourselves truthfully. So when I think of emotional well-being, I'm looking at this message in how can we live truth? What are the things that we need to do to live an an emotional, honest life for ourselves with the people we love? Are we being honest about our feelings? And then when we cultivate emotional honesty, what that does is it puts us in alignment with our divine sacred essence. And so by doing that, it allows us to move forward in the world clear and on purpose, whatever our purpose is. So that's another thing to think about. Another thing that the message that came from these elders in Yoruba land in Southwest Nigeria is that we need to move in a way in the world that we're focused on what lasts. So not doing things quickly and in a hurry, like moving steadily. And they talked about how there may be people who are facing or feeling despair due to economic hardship because of, the climate of whatever country or community that you live in. And if you're experiencing economic hardship or any other type of hardship, to remember that things don't stay that way forever. There's this proverb that says, sweetness comes at the taste of the bitter leaf. So while something may be bitter, it may be sad, it may be challenging at first, eventually joy is going to come. So we were encouraged to not get despondent and to remain in that state when things are rough. So my offering for that is, what would be a joy practice? What is something to cultivate more joy in our lives? And something for us, what may be joyful for me might not be joyful for you, but what are those seeds of joy that you can plant and cultivate in your own life? And then the final thing that I'll say about this is that when we think about expressing ourselves truthfully so that we can be in alignment with what we are called to do this lifetime, and so we can also be in alignment with that sacred, most intimate part of ourselves, we want to get in touch with our heart. Our heart has so much power. In Western society, we have a lot of emphasis on the mind and cultivating intelligence. And because I'm around a lot of intelligently smart people, sometimes I run into an intellectualization of spirit and spirituality. But in this particular tradition and many others, the seat of intelligence is in the heart. It's not in the mind. So what can we do to keep our heart open and strengthen that connection with our heart? And I guess that would be a form of emotional intelligence for those who are, into that. But really having a practice that is cultivating truth, cultivating our connections with our heart so that we can be honest about what we're lacking, about what we need. And even if we need a shoulder to cry on or a few shoulders to cry on, that we can reach out to people that we trust in community so that we can sustain that sense of emotional well-being, because it's hard to do by ourselves. And so these are some of the things, the musings that I had when I was listening and reading different interpretations of this message that went out to hundreds of thousands of people all over the world. And there was one last proverb that came up that was very interesting that talked about suffering, because they did say that because we have the challenge of sickness in the world and we want to pray for healing, we have to learn how to look at suffering in a different perspective. And they give this proverb, and I had to sit with it. They said, "You say you have wisdom, but if you have not suffered, who is your teacher?" So I'll say it again. You say you have wisdom, but if you have not suffered, then who is your teacher? So what that Yoruba proverb or Yoruba saying said to me was, okay, we're going to learn something through the things that we go through this year. We're going to learn something as human beings. And even when the times are challenging, there's a purpose in it. And if we get the lesson, hopefully we won't have to repeat it again. But we're stronger together when we're in community. And with that, we can keep each other emotionally lifted up and hopefully emotionally well. And so those are the offerings coming from Ile Ife in Yoruba land in Nigeria with a Western American interpretation. And I would like to now offer a prayer for all of us just to sink in, and then open it up for you to share whatever is on your heart. And I remember when we came together in March, there was song, and I haven't been here since March. So if you're moved to share a word, silence is welcome too. Song, poetry, inspired poetic verse, however spirit is moving in you, it is all welcome. And so I am closing my eyes. You can keep yours open, closed, whatever makes you feel comfortable. And at this time, I'm inviting all of us to tune into the space of the heart, the seat of power, the seat of emotional intelligence that offers up so much healing and support. I'm acknowledging the indigenous ancestors of the lands where we're all dwelling in this moment, and the indigenous ancestors of the lands where we were all born. Help us to remember that we stand symbolically on the shoulders of those who have come before us. Grant us the courage to face our fears and to express our truth for our freedom. Help support us in realizing that our truth and our emotions are our friends. They have wisdom and medicine to offer. Help us to remember that whatever we have went through and whatever we will go through, that we are enough. Lift us up when we're discouraged. Hold up the symbolic mirror to show us our beauty. Guide us with a gentle hand to remember that we are each other's keeper. Help us to move in love. Ashe. And so it is.